In the beginning, God spoke and created the entire world. Then God created man out of dirt. God told Adam, "Eat from any tree except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil." Eventually, God created a woman. God joined Adam and Eve together in marriage. A serpent came and convinced Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God cursed the serpent as well as Adam and Eve and forced them out of the garden. Wickedness and tragedy continued to spread, but God found one man, Noah, who walked faithfully. So God instructed Noah to build a giant boat, and the entire earth was flooded, wiping out every living thing. Eventually, the flood stopped, and the ark came to rest on dry land. God made a promise that the entire earth would never again be completely flooded, and God looked for someone to bless the entire world.
I like those intros more every time I see them. So, last week I kind of set up for you what the story would do. We would read, that we would reinforce, and then that we would respond. And many of you responded. And I was overwhelmed and shocked and excited, happy with the number of people that I saw in our Wednesday night when we went deeper into the story. And I think that for those of you that were here, you understand that we really are diving down to the core of what these stories are. So I want to encourage you to pick up that reinforced piece and be here on Wednesday night. Because God's doing really good in that time. Not to diminish what happened here, but that's even more. That's even more. And then when we read and we follow along, the unity that's already starting to take root is, well, I don't have another word for it. It's pretty cool to see everybody discussing the same thing, being prepared for a Bible study because we've all read the same stuff. We've done our discussions on the same information. This is a neat thing. So if you can be a part of that, find a way. And if you can't, again, we'll pray for you. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. Especially those of you that think that it's okay to abandon us and go back north. I heard that it snowed up north. So I don't really know why you're in such a rush. Maybe you can explain that to me later. Why you would hurry back to snow. And I think that if you wait, it may not snow again here for a long time. You may never have to shovel snow again if you live here. Just throwing that out there. Today I want to go through the read, reinforce, and respond again. This will be a common theme over the next few weeks as we gather this concept of what it means to be together on the story. Now, the first thing that I want you to understand is last week we talked a little bit about the lower story and the upper story. And if you missed what that means, the lower story, it talks to us about how history has played out, how humanity has lived out history. That's the lower story. That's human history is the lower story. The upper story is God's viewpoint of what history looks like and how His plan is played out through our history. But there's another level to this, and it's our story. How do we lock in with the upper story and the lower story? How do we sit with history and God's story? Where does that all begin to make sense? And you might have noticed that last week I didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about Noah. And I thought, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong, that I believe that you all know of the story. So there was no reason for me to spend extra time. Well, that really fell flat. You're right, Ian. Ian told me that was a bad joke and that I shouldn't use it. I'll try again. Maybe did you get it? Okay. So I had one person sigh, and one person shake their head, and they were both under the age of 25. So let me try again and see if everybody can get the joke. I didn't tell you much more about Noah because I believe you already know the story. You were right. I give Ian credit. I tested the joke on Ian. He said I wouldn't use it. He was right. So, but realistically, I didn't use that because I do believe that most of you have a good understanding of the story of Noah. For whatever reason, I can't talk today. I'm going to put Noah into everything. So on purpose, we didn't talk about that. Now, today, in this part of the story, we discover that God decides to build a nation. And through this new nation, He's going to redeem all of humanity back to Him. The story that we'll cover today, we'll start with the lower story. And the question that needs to be asked here is, if you had the opportunity to pick who would redeem all of humanity, would you pick a 75-year-old man? Probably not. But that's exactly what God did. He took a 75-year-old man and He said, out of you, all nations will be blessed. And the funny part of this story to me is God waits 25 years to make any of this promise come true. That's blowing my mind. The more I read this, the more I dig into this, wait a minute, this guy was 100 when God actually did what He said He was going to do. Let's look at that lower story, how this looks to... So before Abraham was name changed, before any of this came into be, before God put a calling on Abraham's life, this happened. And note, I don't pronounce all of these names correctly. You'll just have to get over that. I figure in the old days, if you just blast through the name and you say it the way you think, that's close enough. All those people are dead and gone. They have no idea I pronounced their name wrong. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of his son Abram, and together they set out from Ur to the Chaldeans to go to Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Look at the map here. Now, if you've ever taken Old Testament history, that you cringe when this map comes up. Because we had to draw these maps, we had to tag these maps, we had to do all kinds of things with these maps. So I just pulled it out for you to see. This is before Abram's calling and after his calling. So look what they did. They traveled from Ur to Haran. That's not a short distance. Remember, they didn't have a jeep they could get in to go across all of this sand. And they weren't really good navigators. I suspect they didn't have a compass because they crossed that river 3 times. There is no reason to cross the river 3 times on the way to your destination, especially when you're walking. Have you ever walked across a river with all of your possessions and all of your family? I mean, I don't even like to cross Disney World with all of my family. I'm thinking cross a river, take a long walk in basically sand. That's exactly what they did. And on their way to their destination, they decided to stop. And they said, take a look with me, if you will. I'm going to read directly out of the story. If you would like to follow along, the passage is Genesis 12. But if you want to follow along with me in the book, let's Let's see, I think I might have put that up there. There you go. If you want to follow along in the book, it's page 13. The Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will into a great, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all of the people of the earth will be blessed." And Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. And he took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, the they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for Canaan, and they arrived there. See, God's plan starts to take action. He's 75 years old. He tells him, all of the stuff that you have, everything that is included in your father's household, leave it. Take only your stuff and go away. Many of us have done this, where we pick up and move away from our parents. It's kind of a good thing that we move away from our parents. We're not intended to live with our parents forever. We may bring our parents back to us, and our parents may accept us back into their home. But it's not really the way God designed things for us to live with our parents forever. So this is a good thing. Why he waited till he was 75 years old to hear from God that it was to leave his parents, I can't explain that. I know for me, in my history, I really waited till my 18th birthday to move away from my parents. There was a bit of independence there, wanting to get on with what God was doing with my life, even though I didn't know it was God that was doing with my life. There was that desire. So Abram waits till he's 75 years old to hear from God. I'm sure God was speaking to him before this point. But what I believe is that Abram had not started listening until he was 75. So go to the place that I will show you, and I will make you a great nation. Now, if you hear from God to do something great with you, this little thing, do this little thing. Whatever this little thing is, you should do it. It seems to make good sense, but most of us, given what God's called us to do something different. Can't explain it. We're hard-headed. Don't do what we're told to do. We know that God has our best interest in mind. We don't always listen. Let's look at the first. God says to make him a great nation. There you go. Those of you that make a new was born here and read the story, and you understand where I'm going with this. And Abram, a classic story of what dysfunctional might look like. Things were pretty back. They'd done more than enough. Don't be hard on them. You make it hard on God to bless you. The point here that we want to pull out is that the first family would-be great nation was pretty flawed. There, how we look at the story, how that point played out. This awkward, dysfunctional family, he would bless them. God said that he would make Abraham's name great. Just his name. Now, Abraham was perfect and was very honest about it. But humble. He took Lot with him, brought him to the family, and he did things for Lot. He took Lot from his family. And he paid his tithe, and he settled his disputes. Most of Abram, the key point to pull out of there is that his name was made great. He had reputation. See, all who Abram, and he will curse the one who curses. What do we, here's what I gather out of that. Here is a God who chose Abram, flaws and all, and he says, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to bless everyone who blesses you, and everyone who does evil by you will receive evil as their reward. What God's saying is, I'm going to protect you. You are mine. This is the result of Abram obeying God, hearing what God is wanting to do with him. See, there's a secondary story here that God will bless all the nations of the world through Abram and through the new nation. That new nation, if you miss the point here, the new nation is Israel. When we talk in politics about should we protect Israel, yeah, we should. When our politicians say, oh, Israel's fine, it'll be okay, they probably will be. But those who bless Israel, the nation that God promised, will be blessed. And those who curse Israel, the nation that Abram started, will be cursed. You look back all through history and you see every country that stood against Israel comes against them. Harm. And every country that has blessed Israel, what comes to them? Blessing. A little side note into my political thoughts. If you ever have any doubt of what I believe politically, is that we should take care of Israel. Before everything, we should take care of Israel. Look what we find here. We find that God will use this new nation to reveal His plan to bring us back to Him. By blessing those who bless Israel, He's bringing those people back to Him. Now, there's more to the story, and I just want to quickly reveal 4 things to you. First is the proposal, and this is where I think the screenplay for Indecent Proposal was built on this plan. That God said that He was going to do something, and Sarai said, well, you know what? It's not going to happen for me because I'm 90 years old, and surely God didn't mean for me to have a child at 90. So Sarai says, take my servant. And, we already talked about the flaws of him. He was a man. And his wife said, here, have this woman. And he thought, well, what could possibly go wrong here? And they quickly found out what could possibly go wrong here. Because soon after, the family turned against each other. The servant who was liked and respected, and the matriarch of the family began to have quarrels. They tended to get along. I'm not surprised by this when I read the story. I can't imagine what would happen if my wife brought another woman into our household. Even if it was just to help with the dishes. I can't imagine that. But here we have Sarai, who believes that for all purposes, she believes that she's smarter than God, and God needs her help to accomplish His goal. You ever been in that situation where you've decided that you need to help God? There's a common thing that happens when we decide that we need to help God. Our plans, because there are plans, not God's plans. When we decide that we're smarter than God and we're more powerful than God and God needs our help, it goes bad. Real bad. And usually real fast. Let's take a look at what's in a name. Now, at the beginning of this, his name means father. Now, I think that Abram was probably the laughing of the community. Here you've been named father. 75 years pass. Years. No children. In the middle of that time, God changes his name to Abraham. Abraham means father of many. A lot of faith. Now, Abraham is going along, and his name is Abram, and he's going to be father. And there's no children. But yet, God renames him, and he trusts God, and he believes in God. So he walks around puffy chest, I would imagine. Change my name to Abraham. You'll call him now. Think about what happens in the community if you decide to be called something that is complete opposite of what you really are. Most people would ridicule that, especially people outside the church. Oh, God's called you father of many. Great, that's good stuff. See, the point here is that God, and he comes to Sarai, and he says, with my spirit, be exponentially accomplishing what you cannot accomplish. Because it's 70, or at 90 and 100, she was 90, he was 100 when this child was conceived. That shouldn't happen. No reason to believe that was going to happen. And that's why I believe it's the funny thing that happens. That when Sarai hears this and realizes that she's 90 and that she's been promised a child, her first reaction is to laugh. She laughed at God. Now, I've laughed at God. Let me tell you, that you're on the wrong side of the playing field if you're laughing at what God's telling you. Because he can accomplish more than you can ever imagine. And I've got a big imagination. When God gives me something and I feel like, oh, that seems way too big, that means it's his plan and not mine. And that I need to trust him and watch and listen for what he wants to do. See, when she laughs at this, she's laughing at what would soon be a supernatural boy that was born. And she named the boy Isaac. And Isaac means laughter. It's kind of ironic here that God says, name the child Isaac. Laughter. So that here we have mom, and I talked about this a little bit last week, about how moms will go to the ends of the earth to protect their firstborn child. So we've got a 90-year-old woman who now is mom for the first time. And God says, name the child Isaac. She knows the language. She knows what Isaac means. How many of you would name your firstborn son Laughter? Laughing. Laugher. Any of those? None of you. None of you would do that. But here she's named her child Laughter. Now, every time she says this boy's name, she is reminded that she scoffed, that she laughed, that she made a mockery out of God's plan for her life. I believe that honed her in and made her focused on being what God called her to be. Every time she spoke her son's name, she was reminded that she laughed at God and his plan. Going on, I believe, when Abram came to her and said, this is what God's told me was going to happen, she didn't laugh anymore. I believe that she stood up and said, what must we do to make this true? And she remembered how she forced things to happen, how she helped God, and how poorly that went. And now she waited for God to do what God was going to do. This funny thing them to what I could only call a terrible test. If you want to read along with me, it's Genesis chapter 22. I'm again going to take out of our book. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac. Go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the mountain I will show you." Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants, his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, he looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the knife and fire. As the 2 of them went together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, "Father." "Yes, son," he replied. "The fire and the wood are here. Where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." The 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place God told him about, Abraham built an altar, arranged wood on it, bound his son Isaac, laid him on top of the altar and on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand, took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord came out to him from heaven. "Abraham, Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Being completely honest with you about that passage, I have a hard time reading it, because I think of my boys and how much faith Abraham had in God. That God said, "Take your son to the place that I will show you. Sacrifice him." Note how God says, "Take your son, only son, the son that you love, boy called Isaac." God was real specific with Abraham. He got up and he went, and he did what God told him to do. And in just a split second away from completing what God called him to do, he was stopped. "I now believe you will follow. I now believe you will do what I tell you to. You've not withheld anything." Abram is a model of faith. Now we can learn a lot about Abraham from his life that clearly there's flaws and there's faults, as there is with all of us. That he obeyed God. When the chips were down, he obeyed God. When he was asked to do what he didn't want to do, he didn't stop. He did what God told him to do. Let's look at the upper story. What God is telling us. First, there's a plan back. That God intends to win us back, and that plan goes through Israel. Just rescuing the righteous will not work. It's not enough. God intends to redeem the broken, hurt, the sinner through the nation of Israel. God's plan requires a nation that will bless all nations. Again, Israel is a nation. This redemption will come through a sacrifice. Redemption has always come through a sacrifice. Through the entire story, you find that redemption is a sacrifice. Last week, we talked about animals that had to die so that they could be clothed. We saw that Noah had to build a boat to bring redemption to the earth. You know, God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, and Abram was willing to do what was asked of him. Later on this same mountain, David offers a sacrifice. Even further after that, a temple is built on the same mountain. In 2 Chronicles chapter 3, then Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah. Had appeared to his father David. Again, you guys, it was on this threshing floor, the place provided by David. Again, time after time, we find that the story points us to redemption, that this mountain begins to go in line with our redemption, because finally it was Jesus who was sacrificed on this mountain. Look, for the common passage of Scripture that you can all say, for God so loved the world that He gave His only Son. What did Abraham give? His only son. The son that he loved. God gave His Son, His only Son, the Son that He loved, so that we could all have eternal life. This story continues to point us over and over and over to the redemption that is available for us. Finally, we need to realize a few simple facts about our own story. We need to accept the reality that you're messed up. See, it feels easy. You're messed up. You could all say it to make it feel easy for you. You could all say that it's me that's messed up. But when we start to look in the mirror and realize that it's our family, it's our individuality, it's us who's messed up, that reality gives us the question, why doesn't God save everyone? That's simple. There wouldn't be all this strife, and there wouldn't be all this battle, and there wouldn't be all this hardship. Why doesn't God choose to save everyone? I have a different question for you. Why does God single one of us is worthy? Single one of us has done anything that we are worthy to be accepted by God. But God chooses to bless the redeemed. See, when we come to Him, when we put our own story into the reality that God accepts we're broken, even though we've made a mess of it, even though we've done wrong, redeemed. I'm going to skip that slide right there. If you would like to go back to it, it's 2 Corinthians chapter 4. If you're a note taker, I would encourage you to read that, because it's for that reason, by faith, that God chooses to bless others. See, the law of the harvest, like Abraham, we are blessed to be a blessing. Many of us, we want to hold on to our blessing. We want to hold everything that God's given to us, and we don't want to share it with anyone. There's the reason I don't take the offering after this message, because it would sound manipulative. But many of us hold on to what God has provided us with, and we choose not to use it to be a blessing to others. See, every day we should wake up and we should ask a simple question of ourselves. And I believe if you'll start your day this way, you will see change in your lifetime. Instead of saying, what can I harvest today? What can I get today? What can others give me today? Start to ask this question. Where can I sow a seed today? Where can I plant into someone else? Where can I do for others? See, I was going through this, and I come to this thought today of the human heartbeat happens between 80,000 and 100,000 a day. If you get a little excited or you've got high blood pressure, maybe you can get up to 110 or 120. But for most of us, between 80,000 and 100,000 heartbeats a day. Just like the heart pumps blood, the spiritual heart is there to pump blessings. We receive those blessings in one way. Those blessings to others. This isn't always a financial thing. Sometimes it's just a phone call. Have you been down and out and somebody calls you that you haven't talked to for no reason, and they just lift your spirit? These are the simple blessings that we all can do. You don't have to be filthy rich to bless people. It's pretty cool if you are and you can bless people like that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being available to bless others, being open, willing, and ready to bless others. You know, I think of, maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, the movie Pay It Forward. See, I took a little nugget out of that movie, and that it would be nice if I was receptive to the idea of paying things forward. I began to speak into my times where it was appropriate to pay things forward. And I'm going to use an illustration that is about finances. Don't hear that I'm only talking about finances, but this makes the most sense for me. Not long after coming to this decision to listen for God to tell me when to pay it forward, I began to have occasions where I would see people who didn't expect anything. I was sitting in the Pizza Hut right here in Zephyr Hills, and there was a lady eating lunch by herself. And I said to Rebecca, I said, I think we just buy that lunch. We just did it. And we left before she could find out that we did it. No reward, no reaction. We just left before she could find out that we did it. Another one that we've done is we're in the grocery store line, and a mom, single mom, and a small child are coming through the line. And they're behind us, and you can tell that they've strategically picked out what is tonight's dinner. So when I slid my card, I told the cashier, don't total my order until they're done with their order. So they bagged up our groceries, we left the store, and their mom got her meal. See, these are the things that God is calling us to do, to be open to. You know, eventually, this becomes a way of life. And what we found out is that every time we do that, someone feels the need to bless our family. And it just happens that way. God blesses those who bless. He has this design. If you can read it in the sword here, it says, I will provide. That's what God's telling us today. He wants to provide for us. But what does he say? I will bless those who bless. He's given us a clear way of doing things. I'm going to bless you. Bless others in expectation of what I might do. Today, what I challenge, what I'm calling you to be active in is believe if we do that, we will change life. Yes, sir. Yes. God blesses those who bless. And I'm sure that we could go around the room. Many would find that to be true in their lives. Many of you have heard many of those stories. I know it to be true. That when we bless, God blesses us. We never, ever outgive God. It just doesn't work. So today, I encourage you, bless you grace. Pray.